In this video, I'm going to share with you some ways that you, as a woman, can scale your business in a way that's joyful, energy-rich, prosperous, and fulfilling. Scaling your business is the best way to have more money, more impact, more freedom, more joy, more all of it. And it can also create a whole bunch of problems when you start to scale your business. The biggest problem that I see when people start to look at scaling their business is that they're already at capacity. By the time someone is looking to scale, they're full. They're usually working too much. They're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, and they figure, I want to grow, but how? I can't find any more hours in the day to create a new online marketing machine or do Facebook ads or whatever it is that they need to do to grow. And so the solution to that is to look, number one, first and foremost, at the business model and finding a new model that's going to be aligned with that entrepreneur's personality, with the vision that they're trying to create, and allows them to transition from where they are to where they're going without a big dip or loss of income in the meantime. So this is what I do. This is my focus. My expertise is in helping people go from where they are to where they want to go in their business, how to scale in a way that allows them to work less and enjoy it more and get better outcomes. Before we get into business models and brands and marketing and sales and strategies, we have to start from the inside out. That's what really makes this whole process work, is to make sure that what we're building is aligned for you. And so starting from the inside means taking a look at, who are you really? What do you love to do the most? Where's your magic? What gets people in trouble usually early on in the business before they start to scale is that they're monetizing time and effort instead of monetizing magic. So we want to identify what your magic is, so then we can find ways to package it and sell it that doesn't require you to deliver it personally every single time. Like, what makes sense for you? And then from that place of clarity, like, these are my deal breakers. I don't want to work on Fridays. I definitely need to be out by 3, or I want to be traveling all the time, or I never want to travel. Once we have that, then we can look at business models that make sense. So for example, if you're someone who loves working with people one-on-one, you're a people person, you love to communicate, you love to touch people and hug people and be with people and support people, then, group coaching model might be a really great business model for you, like it is for me. But if instead you're a mechanic type of person and your personality is that you really love to tinker with things and build things and tweak them and optimize them, then a group coaching model you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it right away, even. And similarly, the person who loves working with people and touchy-feely is going to hate being behind a computer all day tweaking their model. So before we look at the scaling opportunity in terms of what the market needs and wants, we got to start looking inward at what you need and want, what's going to feel joyful and energy-rich and playful. If your business doesn't fit you, if it isn't aligned with you, you can do it. You can even do it successfully, but it's going to take discipline. It's going to take sticking with it. And you're going to want to, at the end of the day, or every Friday at the end of the day, you're going to want to rip it off and get out of there. And so that's number one, alignment. Once you've got clarity on who you are, what you love to do, what you want to do, what you're best at, what your magic is, then we want to look at, what are some ideas? Do some research, get curious. Explore business models. What is someone else doing that you love? Is there anybody that you're envious of, that you see their business and you're like, oh, damn, I really wish I could do that? So this is the time for ideation and exploration and getting excited about the different possibilities out there and exploring those possibilities and diving in and imagining, whoa, what would it be like if I did this or if I did that? Another thing we want to look at when you're creating scale and you're scaling up is the long-term vision. Where are you going? What is it that you want to create over time? I look at business always in 3 phases, every single time. And I call it the processionality of business. I don't know if that's a real word. Processionality of business is looking at business in 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 3 is the long term. Where is this thing going? What's the big vision? What am I creating? Phase 1 is, where am I right now? What do I have? And then phase 2 is that in-between transition. And at any given moment, you are in a different place. You maybe have a different vision that evolves. And so phase two is often evolving. Where we're going to is a little bit of a moving target. But having a sense right now of where you want to go and what it's going to take to get there is going to really help as you start to build out your scalable model. So in terms of ways of scaling, I want to bring up two distinctions. The distinction between magnifying your business and multiplying your business. So different types of people do different things better than others or differently. People who are great with magnification, people like Oprah, me, that's my strategy. It's a model where you're looking to grow by making the existing thing you have bigger and better. So for example, if you've created an amazing workshop or retreat or conference, a magnify approach to growing it would be, let's get more people into this one retreat. Let's make this retreat bigger. Let's magnify it. Another approach might be to say, all right, let's multiply this retreat. Let's replicate it in multiple markets, different times of year. Let's get trainers to go and they'll deliver the experience. That's a multiply model, and that requires standardizing and creating standard operating procedures. So it's kind of a different approach depending on your personality, and that's something you'll want to think about. Also, you can do both. In my case, we did magnify, then we started to multiply. And you could also multiply and then magnify each one. Another distinction is knowing where you are in the seasons of business. So as you think about scaling, there are different stages to scaling. In the first stage is this stage that we're in right now. It's ideation, it's imagination, it's creation. We're brainstorming, we're thinking of ideas. It's often, for a lot of us, the most exciting part of the whole journey. But then there's the stage of concentration and focus. That's where we have to say, all right, I'm going to pick this model, and that requires focus. And a lot of times it requires discipline and work when we don't see the payoff. And so that can be a little bit frustrating sometimes. But once we've done that concentration and focus, that kind of like uphill work of like, making the calls or reaching out to people or, doing whatever needs to be done to create momentum, that's when we kind of crest the hill and we start to coast a little bit. Momentum is where we start to see results. It's where things start to happen and stuff starts to click. And momentum can also be all over the place. It can also be unpredictable. All the things that we didn't think of when we first planned this scaling model can come to the surface. And it can be a very challenging time because we have to roll with a lot of different things going on. And then finally, once we hit momentum, then we start to coast. And then we start to hit the integration phase, right? It's like the stabilization phase. Stabilization where, okay, now we know what strategies work. We know how to turn on the lead generation. We know how to improve the sales. We start to stabilize the model. And so I look at scaling in stages. It's like the same process over and over. And the minute you get to that stabilization phase, things are starting to feel pretty good. Let's see what's next. What are we creating for the next phase? Another thing that's really valuable when it comes to scaling the business is to look at what you have that's proprietary, that's unique, that's yours, your signature system, your signature process, your signature methodology. And even if you don't know what it is, or you don't actually have it like formalized, slap a name on it and call it my superstar business framework. That's what I did. And from that place, that's the thing that you can start to look to scale. So for example, if you have a coaching business and you've developed this methodology of working with people, can you formalize that and then turn it into a training manual to train other people to do that? That's a way to scale a business. Another way might be to take that methodology and turn it into a do-it-yourself course online. That's a way to scale a business. So once you have clarity about your core methodology, you can take that methodology and scale it in different ways that don't involve you using your time over the long haul. Another thing to consider when you're scaling is that you can invest your time up front to create the thing, but then you don't have to keep creating it every time. So it might take you, maybe there's a process that you bring people through that takes you 10 hours every time you bring people through the process. And maybe it takes you 50 hours to actually standardize the process and automate it, but then you never have to do it again. So you spent an additional, you spent 50 hours creating the thing, the automation of it, but then you're hands off forevermore. So look at the things that you're repeating over time, that you're repeating again and again, or that people are asking for again and again, and look at how can you standardize that, turn it into a signature process or methodology, and create it so that it either runs itself, someone else runs it for you, or they can, or your clients can run it for themselves. Another thing that people forget about when they're looking at scaling is the importance of having cash flow to invest. That's why I'm such a big believer in getting your business to that stable place first, having the monthly recurring revenues, the big back end, high ticket, high touch, boutique pricing first, and then from that place of having good cash flow and good profits, taking some of that free cash and investing it in the scaling. So often I see people who are struggling, not having that stability, not having those profits, and wanting to scale at the same time. And it's very difficult to both focus on scaling and focus on being safe at the same time. It's kind of like they're almost at odds, right? One is asking you to step into being bigger, and one is asking you to stabilize and hold steady. So I think it's really important before you start to really invest in scaling, get to a place of stability and some strong foundations. And from that place of stability, invest in the next level. And finally, I think it's important to get some support. Scaling a business by yourself is not easy. I've found that I actually have never been able to do it. In every case where I've had a big breakthrough in my revenues, a big breakthrough in my outcomes, it's been with the help of a mentor and of a crew. So I highly recommend looking for someone that can support you to scale your business, who can give you ideas, who can look at what you're creating and be able to be critical in a nice way of what you're up to make sure that what you're doing makes sense. Now, if I seem like that person to you, then feel free to go ahead and set up some time to check in with me. Go to superstaractivator.com/go. Check out my video, see if you feel like we're a fit. And if you are, go ahead and book a little time on my calendar and we'll explore if and how I might be able to support you in scaling your business to that next level.